I left years ago, but I'll get to that in a minute. I was the general manager for the company, as I said. I was tasked with overseeing daily business activities, improving overall business functions, training new heads of departments, managing budgets, developing strategic plans, creating policies, and communicating business goals with everyone. It seems like a lot, and it is. It's a huge responsibility, but I enjoyed it. I thought of my coworkers less like subordinates and more like friends who do favors for me that I never have to pay back. Which, okay, it sounded a lot better in my head, I'll be honest. But there is one person who got on my nerves even more than the piles of work. In the company, there is a hierarchy, like there is in every company, more or less. There is the general manager, the vice president of operations, president, and CEO of the company. I managed to work my way up the ladder. Only took me 12 years, but who's counting? Even though I got promoted to that high of a position, nothing really changed. My higher-ups still looked down on me, and not because I was literally in a position below them, but for some other reason. Even if you're in the highest position of a company, or whatever it may be, you still respect those who are working for you, because quite frankly, without them, you're nothing. I treated everyone who worked under me equally and respectfully, and we all got along. There rarely was any sort of confrontation or disagreements between each other. However, a majority of the higher-ups' respect was directed to some other guy in the company. He was the director of services, which in my company mainly dealt with customer service and anything else along that line. He and I technically were the same rank, but I oversaw a broader range of employees. However, that apparently wasn't good enough. Not to the higher-ups, at least. They favored him. For what reason? I have no idea. It was actually a miracle I became a general manager in that company, in all honesty. When I first began working there, their numbers as a whole were horrible. I boosted their company further than what they could themselves. I challenged the higher-ups, questioned their every move, and really made them think about what they were doing and if it was helping or hurting the company. Not trying to toot my own horn, but with my presence there, the company didn't go under like it was expected to. In reality, the higher-ups were probably forced to promote me to the title I was. I may have gotten paid more that day, but nothing else really changed. My yearly salary barely changed despite getting multiple promotions in the years I worked there. However, if you want to know whose salary did change, it was Owen, the, you guessed it, director of services. He was like the golden child of the company. Well, to the higher-ups at least. No one necessarily respected him, because he's the favorite. He's able to get away with things normal workers shouldn't be able to. Well, one day, another executive of a huge company wanted to become partners with the one I worked at. If the partnership was agreed upon, it would mean, in simple terms, more money for the company. So in order for this to go smoothly and without any problems or hassles, the higher-ups called for a meeting. However, Owen came up to me one afternoon and told me that the president himself wanted me at the meeting because I was doing such amazing work, quote unquote. It was strange that he sent Owen to tell me and didn't tell me directly himself, but it's not like I could go against him anyways. It was a strategic meeting, according to the executives, to help pave a path towards a successful partnership. When I arrived at the meeting, the whole atmosphere of it seemed rather bleak. All of the executives were there, the VP, the president, and the CEO himself. And Owen. Which is strange because he wasn't an executive. Neither was I technically, but I had a reason to be there. Or so I believed. The CEO told me to have a seat, so I did. I was expecting them to dive right into policies and strategies and ideas, but instead, all four of them turned to look at me. And I was like, is something the matter? The CEO cleared his throat and was like, I'm hearing from Mr. Owen that you were responsible for misconduct. And I was like, I'm responsible for what now? I don't know where their heads were, but they definitely were not on Earth. And he said, I don't know if you know the policies of our company, but inappropriate clothing is not tolerated. I didn't know whether to laugh in their faces or leave. Because every single day that I worked there, I wore long black pants, a white blouse, and a black blazer. Not to mention black flats. So I don't know who they were looking at, but it surely wasn't me. And I was like, sir, I have no idea what misconduct you're accusing me of, but the most risque thing I've done is take my blazer off when the cooling system broke in the dead of summer. And even if I did wear something more revealing like shorts or a t-shirt, why are they looking at me anyways? Mind your P's and Q's and move on. And he was all like, we have witnesses, blah blah, nonsense, something about being unprofessional. What he meant by witnesses, he actually meant Owen, the golden child, the ray of sunshine, the favorite. So when I asked them what exactly they plan to do with this accusation, he said, and I quote, it's been a unanimous decision to, unfortunately, let you go. Hold up. I know for a fact that they did not just fire me from the company I basically resurrected. A few days after it ended, it clicked. Owen worked for that company longer than me, something like 10 years or whatever. That's 22 years of working. He managed to reach the title of Director of Services. I worked there 12 and managed to get the title of General Manager. So I rose to the same rank he did in half the time, give or take. So I wasn't fired because I was being unprofessional or distracting, but because Owen saw me as a threat to his position, and he took advantage of being the favorite. But you know what? I accepted it. Were they in the wrong with no facts or evidence? Yes, obviously. But I didn't report them. I didn't make a big scene or break any windows or noses. Now you all may be wondering, Angel, what did you do? Excellent question, dear viewer. A couple of weeks before the whole fiasco, an executive from the company that's supposed to partner with my old company reached out to me. They were like, I've heard so much about you and how much you work, and your coworkers respect and admire you. First of all, I had no idea who that person was, but I love them already. They even offered me the position of president of their company, which sounds completely crazy, I know. Like, who would just hand over one of the highest executive positions in a company to a complete stranger? However, I've proven time and time again that hard work pays off. And this time, it really paid off. Even though I was let go from my old company, I immediately moved companies. However, the position of president was not to be taken lightly. I had to go through multiple interviews. I was handed some tasks that I completed with little to no hassle. I met the deadline every time, and I proved myself to be a competent, logical worker. So the executives of that company were like, I like her. Just for some backstory, the old president retired after like 40 years of working there, so I'm replacing him basically. Now, being an executive was kind of like being a director or a general, but instead of overlooking a small portion of the company, it's overlooking the entire company. I may not have been in the highest position, but I was in the second highest. Not to mention my opinion and my thoughts were important. Not because I was the president, but because I was a respectable worker. So, I may or may not have exposed my ex-company of wrongfully accusing their workers of misconduct and allowing a non-executive worker into their meetings to sway decisions of the company. The CEO didn't like that at all. He got the impression that my ex-boss was a trustworthy man. I didn't even really need proof because A, I was telling the truth, and B, there were already rumors circulating around the corporate world about him wrongfully accusing employees and firing them without solid proof or witnesses. So the CEO made the decision to pull out of the partnership, which in turn severely damaged my ex-company financial-wise. They were expecting and preparing for the partnership to...
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm editing my video with the War 9.
What kind of YouTube videos do you make?
Makeup videos.
bring in millions of dollars. Because the company I now worked at technically was more well-known, I had the opportunity to say, hey, this company I used to work at is trash. Obviously, I worded it a little bit more eloquently and better than that, but that was a summary of what I said. Because of that, less and less people bought from that company. More shareholders pulled out of the company, and they lost a lot of revenue due to past evidence resurfacing. At that point during the company's downfall, Owen called me. He was really mad at me and was like, in summary, how dare you be successful at your job? Like, dude, not my fault your little suave act didn't save your hide this time. Months passed and the company literally was on the verge of either bankruptcy or going under. Me and the other executives all had another meeting. The company grew even larger after partnering with smaller companies and businesses. The CEO asked our opinions on my ex-company and whether they'd sink or swim, even though they were pretty close to sinking. I casually brought up that instead of watching the company crumble, we should take it over. We have the size, we have the money, we have the power. The executives gave it a serious thought. If the company was under them, they could change the policies, fix the underlying corrupt and unfair treatment of employees in the past, and get back at the executives who chose to believe a manipulative, lying piece of... Keep it PG, Angel. Keep it PG. After a little effort and time, my ex-CEO had no choice but to surrender his company to mine. I took it upon myself to collaborate with the marketing and design teams. I changed everything my ex-boss worked so hard to achieve. The logo, the name, hell, even the company's signature colors. I mean, who in their right mind thinks bright yellow and white go together? That should have been a sign from the get-go no one knew what they were doing. I faced my ex-boss himself and politely told him that due to multiple accusations of false allegations, I would have to let him go. Let me tell you, I have never felt as powerful as I did in that moment. What goes around comes around. I then told the same thing to Owen, who boldly told me to go do things that aren't too family-friendly. Which is fine. Let them die mad. There were some employees that I kept because they were genuine and hard workers. Take what you will from this. I did what I believe was right. Of course, that's not the only option I had. I could have just left and let it die. I could have made a big deal about it. I could have gone to court and gotten legal with it. So, I'm going to ask this right now. If you were in my place and were presented with the same problems, what would you have done? Would you have done one of the things I listed off or something different? Type out your plan of action or revenge in the comments below. I'm excited to see what schemes you come up with.